It's me, the tree guy!
What's up everyone, I'm back with another video in my series where I get to the highest rank in different card games with a new account. For this one, I played Yugioh Master Duel, and let me tell you straight away, it was way more stressful than Pokemon TCG Live. Even though I've played modern Yu-Gi-Oh and I'm somewhat familiar with some of the decks, Yu-Gi-Oh is just way more punishing of a game than Pokemon. At the higher ranks, if I made one mistake, I often just lost the game on the spot. There's also so many different decks and ways to lose that it was really hard to know where I needed to interact with my opponent. The Yu-Gi-Oh ranked ladder has 7 ranks: Rookie, Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Diamond, and Master. For Rookie, just playing 2 games and not conceding will move you to Bronze. After that, you need a certain number of wins to get promoted to the next rank. You don't lose any ranked progress until you hit Platinum. Starting in Platinum, every loss will basically undo a win. There are also no bonuses for win streaks, so if your win rate is below 50%, it's almost impossible to climb. You need roughly 20 more wins than losses to get from the bottom of Platinum to Diamond, and another 20 to go from Diamond to Master. Unlike Pokemon TCG Live, your opponents are the same rank as you, meaning the ladder gets more competitive as you climb higher. The decks you start with in Master Duel are completely unplayable in the modern meta, so I just decided to choose a deck that I wanted to play. I took inspiration from my previous video where I accidentally picked a going first deck into a going second meta. Since most Yu-Gi-Oh decks want to go first, I decided to pick a deck that wants to go second instead. Enter Tenpai Dragon. For those of you who don't play Yu-Gi-Oh, Tenpai Dragon is a deck that only wants to go second, and is known for its ability to ignore most of what your opponent is doing and just kill them on turn 2. It was one of the most hated decks back when it was released in 2024. Just look at some of these comments in the Tenpai Dragon guide. However, that was from over a year ago, and amazingly, Yu-Gi-Oh has experienced quite a bit of power creep since then. So, we'll see how this goes. The first downside to choosing Tenpai Dragon is that it uses a ton of staples that are all ultra rares. This is one of the most expensive decks in the game. There are a lot of resources readily available for new players, but you have to work for them. So, before I even started the ranked ladder, I went to play a bunch of solo duels and the event. Thankfully, the loner deck for the event was something that I sort of knew how to play, Live Twin Sprite. I never played the Sprite variant of Live Twin, but the Sprite engine wasn't too complicated. I was grinding for about 5 hours before eventually getting bored and deciding that instead of playing Live Twin Sprite in the event, I'll just use the free Sprite deck from the new player campaign until I can afford to finish up Tenpai Dragon using the gems I get from rank up rewards. Starting my climb in Recruit, there's nothing really to say here. There were only 2 games, and one was a disconnect. I won both my games, but you move up in this rank even if you lose as long as you don't concede. In Bronze, it took me 6 games to climb to the next rank with an 83% win rate. I mostly faced people playing starter or structure decks, so this rank wasn't much of a challenge except for one guy playing K9. I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh in like a year, so this was my first, but definitely not my last time playing against K9. I had no idea what the deck does, and I was just hit with a barrage of effect text. It didn't help that I barely knew how to play my own deck, and my deck only had 3 extra deck monsters. Looking back, this was just a taste of what was to come. I played 11 games in Silver, and I won 10 of those games. Silver was mostly unoptimized structure decks and rogue decks, but a few meta decks showed up as well. Honestly, the free Sprite deck did pretty good for a deck with only 3 extra deck monsters. In this clip, I break a Canine board through Ash Blossom and Infinite Impermanence, although I wouldn't say my opponent played optimally. Even if the decks were better than in Bronze, I did get the sense that people were still learning how to play their decks, or just get comfortable with Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. There were plenty of misplays that allowed me to easily climb through to gold. At this point, I had enough resources to craft my Tenpai Dragon list, excluding a few non-essential extra deck cards that I crafted later. I opted for a pure Tenpai Dragon list that used a mix of hand traps and board breakers. One thing I didn't think about when I picked Tenpai for this challenge was that I'd have to sit through my opponent's combos most of the time. There were some really long turns, which probably made this challenge take longer than if I played a different deck. So, I started gold rank with Tenpai Dragon. I played 28 games in gold and had a 71% win rate. Gold rank no longer had any structure decks and instead had a mix of meta and rogue decks. The opponents and their decks were getting better, but it was still pretty manageable at this rank. I made a ton of mistakes with Tenpai Dragon, but it was so much stronger than the free sprite deck that it was still stronger despite all of my misplays. The damage potential of the deck is extremely high, so I rarely needed to do an optimal combo to find lethal. While my opponents were putting up much stronger end boards, this rank felt more like my Tenpai Dragon crash course than anything else. Platinum is where things started getting tough. It took me 43 games to get out of Platinum, and I still had a pretty high win rate at 72%. At this point, there were still rogue decks, but they were pretty optimized. Other than that, it was all meta decks. I didn't notice a huge difference with gold rank until about Platinum 2. However, it could also be because I was getting comfortable with the deck and making fewer mistakes. This is also the rank where losses start counting against you. Because of this, every loss in Platinum was much more tilting than in the previous ranks. Oh my god! Finally! Diamond is where things got really hard. Overall, it took me 107 games to reach Master from Diamond 5, which is more than all the other ranks combined. My win rate also dropped from 72% in Platinum to just 55%, just barely enough to allow me to climb. The decks were all meta decks or rogue decks mixed with a meta archetype. Not only were the decks highly optimized, the players all seemed to know exactly how to play their decks. This was a bit tough for me because I'm just barely getting by as a Tenpai player. I still screwed up my combos, forgot I needed a discard for Sangan summoning, and it took me over 80 games to learn that Fadra is the one that protects from battle. I was sweating in almost every single game in Diamond. I know people talk trash about Tenpai and how brain dead the deck is, but honestly, Yu-Gi-Oh! In general is a super complicated game. A brain dead deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still way more complicated to play than most Pokemon decks. It's pretty crazy how after 75 games with Raging Bolt EX in Pokemon, I felt pretty comfortable with the deck, while I still don't know most of my combo lines with Tenpai Dragon after 178 games. I have 5 extra deck monsters that I literally never summoned a single time because I had no idea when I would even want to use them. Also, the deck may have been a menace when Sengen summoning and Sengen Kaimin weren't limited, but there were many games where I lost to a single Negate or Ash Blossom. I wouldn't say that the deck is bad, but it's nowhere near being the crazy meta threat that it once was. Throughout my climb, I played 197 games over 21 hours and 40 minutes. My total playtime is 26 hours and 40 minutes though, if you include the time grinding solo duels and the event. The first thing that's very obvious is that games of Yu-Gi-Oh! Are short. My climb took a little over 1.5 times longer than in Pokemon TCG Live, but I played more than 2.5 the number of games. The average game length was only 2.5 turns, which would maybe be closer to 3 turns if I wasn't playing Tenpai, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very fast regardless of which deck you're playing. My overall win rate for the climb was 64.5%, but that win rate is definitely being propped up by my success in the lower ranks. I went second in 180 of my games, but 11 times that I went first were from when I was playing sprites. In the 178 games that I played with Tenpai Dragon, I went second 172 times. That's around 97% of the time. So, I was right about being able to go second most of the time, but also, some turns just took forever. Like, look at this guy. He's playing Fiendsmith, Shining Sarcophagus, Mitsurugi, and White Forest Azamina all in one deck. His turn literally took 10 minutes, and I had no idea how many disruptions he ended on, but it was a lot. If you think Tenpai Dragon is toxic, but this is okay, you're delusional. I also got first turn killed 3 times, which is a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh, so yeah. What the fuck was that? The most popular archetype was Canine Vanquish Soul. 22% of my games were against Canine variants, which is quite a lot when you consider how many different decks there are in Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, I think I would be more upset about Canine's turn 0 plays if I was going first, but Canine was much less frustrating to me than Yummy or Fiendsmith piles. Overall, the climb to Master Rank was a fun challenge, but I'm also kind of glad that it's over. For my next video, I'm going to try hitting Legend in Hearthstone. There was a time when Hearthstone was my main game, but that was almost 10 years ago. I haven't played it since, so there's going to be a lot to learn. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like or subscribing, and let me know in the comments which other games you think I should try. Once again, I have a link to a document with some basic match info as well as replays for the matches. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.